Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time podcast. I'm here with our man Achilles Rain to break down the NFL playoffs round 2. It was quite a round, a lot of great actions. Are you ready to get into the games this week?
Oh yeah, for some reason it feels like a lot longer since our last chat.
Does it?
Yeah, at least to me. I don't know why. It seems like this week has kind of gone on a little bit longer. Maybe has something to do with that big loss, but we'll get into it.
I don't know. I think you were probably ready for it. So I think you had already planned your misery out ahead. You got a playoff win. So I guess that's the game we'll start with, since that was the first game of the week. The Los Angeles Rams went to the Green Bay Packers. The Rams lost 32-18 to Green Bay. Green Bay put on quite the offensive performance. Jared Goff went 21-27, 174 and a touchdown. Cam Akers had 18-91 touchdown. Josh Reynolds 3 for 65. Robert Woods 8 for 48. Aaron Rodgers was 23 of 36, 296, 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones 14-99 and a touchdown. Jamal Williams 12 of 65. And Alan Lazard 4 of 96 and a touchdown, and one drop touchdown that made this score a little bit closer than I think it really was. Devontae Adams 9 of 66 and a touchdown. So let's get into this game a little bit. I think really this game was lost probably about 5 weeks ago when you lost to the New York Jets. I mean, judging from watching that Saints and Tampa Bay game, you all looked on the level with those teams. You did not look on the level with the Green Bay Packers. I think asking that defense to come with, Herculean monumental effort 3 weeks in a row really was probably a bit too much to ask, and Green Bay carved you up a little bit. I actually didn't think the offense played well for what was sort of left out there. I thought they played solid enough, but the defense just didn't have enough juice this week.
Yeah, I mean, just watching the game, I felt like the offense did as good as the job as they could have done, all things considered. I really didn't expect that type of performance. I was a little impressed with the way they played. I was impressed with Jared Goff. I think that he did a pretty good job.
I think we can call off the John Walford should have his job meeting after this week's performance. I think we saw someone who could actually throw NFL throws, and a guy who's a spunky little water bug.
Yeah, I think that if he would have played this way for most of the season, I think we probably would have seen a different team in these playoffs. I think that too much was put on that defense early on in the season and pretty much throughout the entire season. Now, with Aaron Donald being hurt, he was obviously out for multiple snaps in that game. He didn't play very much, and the few times he did, it almost seemed like he wasn't quite himself. He was definitely being not shut down, but he was definitely being kept in check. But I still think that the team overall did a pretty
those explosive ones right off the snap where he's in the backfield causing havoc. When they doubled him, he was pretty much contained, which if Aaron Donald has been able to for years now just break those double teams. So it definitely affected that whole defensive line and how it sort of got to the quarterback in this game.
Yeah, like I said, I think that the team itself played relatively well on all phases of the game. I just think they ran into a very, very hot and potent Packers offense. Even their defense seemed to be really motivated. They played really well, even as well as I thought the Rams offense played. I think Green Bay did enough, and they made enough plays to really cause havoc. But I think that the biggest takeaway for me was just how potent this Packers offense is. It's going to take a team with really good defense and a really good offense to be able to keep up with them, because they just kind of seem to go, and it's really hard to sit here and key on one guy. Like you think, okay, we can take out Adams and it really limits their game, but as you saw, they have a bunch of different weapons, and Rodgers is not afraid to use any of them. So I think that this is probably one of the scary teams going forward, and it was a really good win by them. I still think the Rams played pretty well even in the loss. So I'm holding my head up, and I think the fact that I kind of expected this to happen makes it that much easier to accept.
Yeah, I thought the Rams did play all right. I thought the defense was a little worse than it had been, but I think that was, to be expected, just attrition wise. Having those two games, that Arizona game to get into the playoffs, and then that Seattle game last week, I think sort of just, we discussed it on Thursday how you just can take so many hits before you break down. And I think this was probably the week they broke down. But really, I think more impressively was the Green Bay Packers. They just played great. And we'll get to the other game. But Saints, Bucks, Rams, I think you throw them into any mix and you probably get some random result each time, But right now, from what I see, any of those teams play the Green Bay Packers right now, I think they get lit up pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think that, like I said, they look very polished. Their offense looks like like it's a well-oiled machine. Like I said, you can key in on one guy, and obviously, you think of that offense, you think of Rodgers and Adams. That's obviously the connection everyone makes when they think of that offense. But the surplus of running backs that they end up using in the game ends up working to their advantage, because there's always going to be some guy that's going to kind of have a hot hand in any particular week. And it really showed this week with, them being able to use different running backs in different situations. So I think that offense is really scary. And like I said, yes, the Rams defense was a little, hobbled with injuries and whatnot, but even they had a hard time. They were able to get a few stops, but for most of that game, I felt like I was praying that defense could do enough to keep the offense in the game. Whereas in most weeks with the Rams, it's me hoping that offense does enough for the defense to stay in the game. It really flipped, kind of an identity this week for watching that game. But that Packers team is just, I think it's really Super Bowl hungry right now, and that's probably one of the reasons why they're playing so well. They're all getting hot at the right time, and I wouldn't want to face them going forward.
Yeah, I can't say enough about that offense. They came out, ran the ball on the outside, then ran the ball on the inside with Williams pounding away. And those two play action plays to Lazard, the one he dropped, that would have been the long touchdown that sort of got the Rams back in the game. And then they, hit essentially the exact same play later in the game. It was just beautiful offense, work to perfection. I can't say enough also about that offensive line. I mean, we talked about Donald not getting back there, and he was hurt, but I thought that Green Bay offensive line did a job on Donald and everybody else. They really stepped up even without Bakhtiari there.
Yeah, because even without Donald in the game, you still have a lot of guys on the defensive line.
Last week for Seattle when Donald stepped out. They still had enough guys in there that were getting to Russell Wilson, and they just couldn't really get to Aaron Rodgers this week.
Yeah, kudos to that offensive line coach for putting together the type of game plan to protect Aaron Rodgers and give him as much protection as possible. Because when you give Aaron Rodgers more than 4 seconds, he's probably going to shred you, and that's kind of what we saw. I know that game was tight early on. A lot of it had to do with a couple of miscues on offense for the Packers. You stop and you think, if they connect on those plays, like those broken plays, the score probably could have been even more lopsided than it was. So, just happy that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But, they look really good. And like I said, even going up against talented corner like Ramsey, and some of the other guys on that secondary, they moved guys around and they made enough to cause some confusion. So just going forward, I think that the Packers are probably my favorite to win it all. They look really scary and they look Super Bowl ready.
Well, you, I guess, answered my next question. Due to circumstances that have come to light in the other games, injury-wise, Would the Packers be your betting favorite right now?
Yeah, right now I would have to say so. I think that, like I said, they look like the most complete team, the most Super Bowl ready, and not to take anything away from the teams that are remaining. We've got some really good teams in there still, and I've talked about Tampa Bay pretty much all season long, and how stacked they seem to be, and they seem to be getting it together as the season keeps going. They seem to just be getting better and better. But when I look at all these teams, on the field, I just feel like the Packers are probably the scariest one. Almost kind of like the Chiefs of last season, where you don't think that they were going to be out of it because that offense is going to put them in regardless. So if I had to pick one right now, just based off everything that happened, injuries on both conferences and things like that, that I have to say the Packers are my favorite.
Yeah. All right. So the new favorite for Achilles reign, the Green Bay Packers, will go to the AFC. Will go to the Saturday night game in the AFC. Buffalo Bills 17, Baltimore Ravens 3. Josh Allen 23 of 37, 206, and a touchdown. Singletary 7 carries for 25 yards. Stephon Diggs 8 for 106 and a touchdown. Lamar Jackson 14 for 24, 162 and an interception. Tyler Huntley got in the game, 6 of 13, 60 yards. J.K. Dobbins, 10 for 42. Gus Edwards, 10 for 42. And Marquise Brown, 4 for 87. This was a very interesting game. They said there was no wind, but then they kept showing the flags and they were blowing like crazy. So I think there was some wind, and I think it was definitely playing with the ball because Josh Allen, who has a cannon arm already, threw a couple of those deep balls, and they seemed to sail about an extra 30 yards. But so I think weather played a big factor in this one. This was a very interesting game. Buffalo got the touchdown, got up about 10-3, and then the big play was that pick six that Lamar Jackson threw, and then, of course, the snap over his head, and he sort of got tackled weirdly and banged his head and was out with a concussion. And once Tyler Huntley entered the game, I think that pretty much wrapped things up. I don't think Tyler was going to make the comeback here. But what'd you make of this game? I think it was much more low scoring than we thought, but I think that a lot of that had to do with weather.
Yeah, the weather was a little bit weird. I think I sent out a tweet or something where I mentioned that people aren't used to weather in Buffalo at this time of year.
And it was,
we're not,
quote unquote, a warm day at 30 degrees.
yeah, we're just, like I said, we're just not used to seeing anybody play at Buffalo this late in the season. So that's almost a success story in itself, the fact that we're even talking about it. But as much as I like the Bills and as well as they played, and don't get me wrong, Josh Allen, like I said early on in the season, I think that he's knocking on the door of being in that elite class of quarterback. He still shows moments of his youth, his inexperience in these type of situations. Overall, they still won though, so you can't really hold that against them. They put together a pretty good game plan going up against this defense, which I thought might give them a little bit of a headache. And at some point, it almost felt like Baltimore could probably pull this one off. I had the Bills winning this game, but I think that just the flow of the game made me a little uneasy. There were certain situations where I felt that Buffalo should have really kind of pulled away from it, and they just kept, letting Baltimore hang in there. And I was like, this is not a good idea. You don't want to let, this team with the, former MVP in this game, because they can run away with it. And then before you know it, you're out of the playoffs. But they did enough to stay in that game, and they pulled off the win. I think it was a lot closer though than that score really shows. Just the flow of the game, like I said, it really felt like it was a back and forth thing. A few mistakes by both quarterbacks. I think what really hurt Baltimore was the lack of a passing game. But they're going home now, and Buffalo's moving ahead. So that's pretty much how the story went.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that game plan. Essentially, Buffalo did not run the ball at all. Literally, they had no running back carries until like late in that third quarter. And then they handed it to like Singletary 3 times in a row. And then they didn't have any more until the very end when they were running out the clock. And rightfully so, I probably would be a little scared to, like last week, they, put it on Josh Allen to run the ball. This week, they seemed a little more resistant to want to have Josh Allen bang around with the Baltimore Ravens. Did you like that strategy to come out and sort of just concede? We're down Zach Moss. We aren't going to be able to run the ball versus Baltimore. If Tennessee couldn't run the ball versus Baltimore, we aren't going to be able to run versus Baltimore. And we don't want to put Josh Allen in a situation where he gets hurt. We'll get to the Kansas City Chiefs game in a second, in a situation that probably is similar to this one, where you don't want to go from Josh Allen to your backup quarterback because that drop-off is quite large. But what'd you make of the Buffalo game plan to just come out and wing it?
I'm kind of old school when it comes to, the way I like my team to operate. I really like a balanced team, possibly a little run heavier than pass heavy, but I think they had to go with this type of game plan. Just like you said, you don't want to risk the guy that got you there. And this defense has already shown that they can stop just about anybody. If they can stop Derrick Henry, they can stop just about anybody. So even though I'm not a huge fan of that type of game plan, I think that it was a necessity. They had to go this way. And it's really hard to question the results. I mean, how do you question, what the outcome was?
I didn't think it hurt them necessarily, other than, I don't know. I think it just sort of maybe got their rhythm off. Now, a part of that is also, the weather. I'm assuming it was not windy when they were warming up, and then at some point this wind just started kicking around and whipping the ball all over the place. And I think that's where I question it, is like, it's going to be very hard to launch the ball all over the field without at least trying to run the ball a little bit. Now, I don't think it would have been successful, and I would agree that you probably don't run Josh Allen in a situation like that versus the Baltimore Ravens.
No, and like you said, we'll get into the other games in a little bit, but you saw what happened in that Kansas City game. It's just kind of a freak accident, but these kind of things tend to happen. And when you're in this situation like the Bills are, you don't put anything to chance. Not right now. You're so close to getting to the promised line. I don't think that you kind of go all in quite yet. There's still more games to play, more games to win. So, like I said, I feel like that type of game plan was almost a necessity. I wouldn't want to see that going forward on a weekly basis. I don't think that gives them the best chance to win. But I think for this week, it was exactly what they needed. So, they came out with a win, and that's all that matters, really.
Yeah. Buffalo Bills defense. It was quite possibly atrocious versus the Indianapolis Colts, but they looked much, much better, a lot faster, more physical this week. Do you just make that to nerves? They're playing a team whose system they know. Going back to last season, Buffalo hammered Baltimore pretty good on the defensive side of the ball. Do you just make it more of a matchup thing, or the nerves were no longer there this week?
I don't think it had anything to do with nerves. I think this had to do with personnel. When you look at the way these teams are built, the Baltimore Ravens are built almost like they're technically a run first team, but their run really comes from the quarterback. And that's how they had success in that, last 2 quarters, last half of the season, that last quarter of the season, whatever it was, that it was with Lamar Jackson really run the ball. Whereas if you look at other, the team before that, the week before that, it's just a different style. I don't think that defense necessarily looked better or worse. Like I said, I think it has to do with personnel. You have a team who's a little more comfortable playing off their running backs and tight ends, not just running the ball, but also on dump off screens, wheel routes, things like that. And Baltimore's built a little bit differently. They're going to, kind of run that run pass option type of game. So I think this is more of a personnel type of situation. I don't think it had anything to do with nerves. I think that They're locked in right now, and barring any mistakes and barring a certain guy showing up, I think that they have a pretty good shot at going all the way.
Well, that was my next question. Where are you with Buffalo? Do you make them AFC favorites right now? Do you make them just below the Chiefs, or do you think the Chiefs are big favorites right now?
Listen, I don't know what the situation is with Mahomes right now, but I don't care who's your
I can
backup.
tell you the situation is he's going to be cleared.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a given. I think that
Whether his brain is functioning or not, I don't know.
yeah, and not just that. I mean, it's not just that concussion that really concerns me. It's also that
Oh,
yeah, because if there was some lingering going on, and you could definitely see the difference, like in that one play where he had to scramble for that first down when he ran out to the left on a broken play. He didn't look like himself, man. And I know that he's very athletic and he's known for his athleticism, but he didn't look like himself. And yes, the concussion thing, we've seen guys come back from it a week after. That's it happens all the time. Like you said, whether he's better or not, we don't know. But players get past that and they just
I
kind
never
of
like
play.
it when they stumble. So
Yeah, that was and when you look at the play, I don't know if you really looked at it closely, but I was trying to figure out where this concussion could have come from. Because all I really saw was when he got tackled, the defenseman almost kind of grabbed him by the head, by the helmet, and when he spun him around, it looked like he hyperextended his neck and almost like bent it as he hit the ground.
yeah.
Uh, but I don't think it was like a dirty hit or a malicious hit. I
No,
thought,
I think it was just sort of a freak thing, and then his forehead sort of came like right perfectly angled and hit that ground, and I think it scrambled his head a little bit. But
yeah, but like I said, I think depending on how he's looking with that toe, that's probably what's really going to lean me one way or another. I think that both these teams are pretty well matched. I know that earlier on in the season, the Chiefs came out on top, but I think that was also a different Bills team. I think that they've matured a lot as the season progressed since their last meeting. So I'm not going to really look into that one too much. But I think that just based off what happened last week, I think that you kind of have to make the Bills your favorite for the AFC this week. Again, as we get closer to it's game day, we'll know a little bit more about the situation with Mahomes' toe and things like that. But if Mahomes is good to go and he's feeling better about that toe, I think it puts him on more even ground. But as of right now, I think the Bills are slightly ahead.
yeah. All right. So we'll move to those Sunday games. We'll get into the Cleveland Browns 17, Kansas City Chiefs 22, Baker Mayfield 23 of 37, 204, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Nick Chubb 13 carries, 69 yards. Kareem Hunt 6 for 32 and a touchdown. Rashad Higgins 5 for 88. Patrick Mahomes was 21 of 32, 55 and a touchdown before he left with a concussion. Chad Henne 6 for 8, 66 yards and an interception. One very big run though. Darrell Williams 13 for 78, Tyreek Hill 8 for 110, and Travis Kelce 8 for 109 and a touchdown. So this game seemed to play out how we both thought it was going to play out. And then it sort of played out, I think, once Mahomes hurt his toe, pretty much how the Chiefs have been playing all season long, a little sloppy, but dominating. And I don't think anyone was all that worried about the Cleveland Browns coming back to win it. And then Patrick Mahomes got the big concussion. He got up, he stumbled. We knew he wasn't coming back after that. And all of a sudden, Cleveland, you began to think that this is the way you weirdly lose playoff games if you're the much better team. And they finally decided to run the ball. I didn't understand that game plan in the first half for the Cleveland Browns. We'll get into that later. But they finally started to pound Chubb and Hunt and got in the end zone. And Henne threw possibly the worst pick I've ever seen in playoff history, just shooting the ball up 40 yards down the middle of the field. But then he made a great run on 3rd and 14, and Andy Reid That man has some stones to call that play.
Oh yeah.
I don't mind going for it, but to call that play with still 10 seconds left on the play clock on midfield, that's a tip of the hat to Andy Reid right there. And they end up winning the game. What do you make of this game?
I thought it was a pretty exciting game, and I don't want to, really dwell too much on that injury, but I think that injury made it an even better game.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't think at any point, I don't know about you, but I didn't feel like the Browns were coming back on the Chiefs. They might do what the Chiefs have been doing and give up a score. And then they're like, oh, we need Patrick Mahomes to drive down here. And 3 passes later, they score a touchdown and they're back up. And then the second he gets that concussion, you're like, oh, they might blow this. And all of a sudden your eyes start to laser focus a little more on the TV screen there.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm sitting there watching the game, I'm thinking to myself, are we going to have a Buffalo Bills and a Cleveland Browns?
I was waiting for that for TV ratings.
Oh,
Cleveland at Buffalo. That was going to be Mayfield, Allen, the duel.
This is the thing, though. I mean, the Packers are great. They're a really good team. They're the best team in the NFC, and for obvious reasons, they look great. But when you start to look at the landscape of the NFL right now and the teams that are kind of contending, you look at teams like the Bills and teams like the Browns, the Bucks. I know that, the Bucks are a complete overhaul from what we're used to seeing, but you look at the dynamic, it seems like, the status quo is changing a little bit as far as who the contenders are in the NFL week in and week out. It's a little exciting for those other teams that don't really get a chance.
I will say we aren't there yet, but in the Saints Bucks game, the only quarterback who looked like he could throw a pass was Jameis Winston. So
yeah, Jameis Winston. I mean, we'll get into it right now, but it's just like I said, the whole landscape feels like it's shifting a little bit, not a lot, but enough for to give other teams a chance to be in a situation like Buffalo Bills and Cleveland Browns fans were. But yeah, it was overall, I think it was a pretty entertaining game. And, I say before the game, I was kind of 90-10 as far as whether the Chiefs would win or the Bills would win. I was really heavy on the Chiefs. I thought that so many different things had to go right for the Browns to win. And, they almost pulled it off, though. I think it was an accomplishment itself to get this far. Nobody expected them to have that type of record. And then even when they got in, I don't think anybody really gave them a chance, myself including, against the Steelers. And they came out, they handled business. They moved on to the next round. So I think overall it was a really successful season for them. And even the postseason itself, I know they didn't want to go home early at this point. They were so close, but they're just not quite ready yet, and they have a little bit more building to do. But if they can kind of continue with this type of momentum, this type of philosophy, I think that they're going to be one of those teams that are kind of going to be in it at least for the time being.
Yeah, a couple questions I wanted to ask you about in this game. First half game plan. One, they chose to kick the ball to the Chiefs and receive at halftime. Of course, the Chiefs drove right down, got the score early, and I was just curious on your thoughts on that. I thought that was a real bad decision because you're putting your defense in a pretty bad spot. You're putting yourself down, which then alters your game plan. I just don't know why, if you are the Browns, you don't take that ball, try to initiate the run and control the clock right off the start instead of sort of being like, here, Chiefs, have the ball, come down, light us up, and we'll be playing catch up for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it in those terms, it definitely makes sense as to why you'd rather receive the ball and kind of get, some offensive momentum going. But I'm more of the I'd rather defer, give my defense a chance to make a big play, get some momentum on defense, especially against a potent offense like the Chiefs. And then we know that no matter what, we're getting the ball back in the second half. If we go into halftime with any type of lead or even, a tie game, that's almost like a victory, a moral victory in itself, because, you're getting the ball back and then you have the opportunity to take a lead. So I'm more of that type of mindset. I'd rather defer and receive in the second half. But what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I think that they needed so many different things to go right for them to win. The fact that they had the freak accident with Mahomes, not that they wanted that to happen, but I'm sure that they were a little bit happy that it happened because it gave them that much better chances of winning. But yeah, in retrospect, I mean, you probably want to put your offense out there and kind of, get them controlling the clock, keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, and but they obviously have an idea of how they want to attack this team, and it just didn't work out for them.
Well, that was the other thing. They really threw a lot of short, quick passes in the first half. I didn't think they utilized Chubb. Hunt didn't even have a touch until like late in that third quarter. What did you make of that decision? Because once that fourth quarter started and Patrick Mahomes went down, all of a sudden Chubb was getting, 10-yard chunks. Hunt was getting 8-yard chunks. And all of a sudden the Chiefs defense looked like it was struggling to stop them. Now, some of that might've been wearing them down from those first half, quick passes and trying to manipulate as many plays as you could. But I thought you had a free reign to run the ball from the start with Chubb.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. This is when they're at their best, is when they use that run first type of mentality, that they assert themselves physically and control the clock, and you limit the amount of touches that Baker Mayfield has to make. That's when you're most successful as a Cleveland Browns franchise. But for some weird reason, like you said, they didn't follow that type of game plan, and that's when we've seen them, perform not at their top level, not at their best, is when they decide to put a little more on the quarterback as opposed to doing what really got you to. I think that their whole success this season was based off the fact they had one of the best rushing attacks. I believe they were definitely top 5. For some reason, I think they were like probably the number 1 rushing team in the NFL this season, but I know for sure they were at least top 5. And when you have that type of offense that's revolving around your running back, you have to stick with it, especially in the playoffs. The run game is so useful and so helpful in the playoffs that going away from it, especially when it's your bread and butter, I think was a huge mistake. And we might be singing a different tune if they probably would have gone with the run first offense. Of course, we can't change what happened. They're out and the Chiefs are moving on. But I feel like this team probably could have been a little more dangerous had they changed their game plan a little bit.
Yeah. And last 2 coaching things here. They didn't go for 2 points. That sort of played a factor there towards the end. I know it was pretty early, but I think you probably always should try to get those 2 points back, no matter how early it is in the game. What did you make of that?
Well, see, again, I'm old school when it comes to the way I like my team to run. I know that analytics tells you go for 2. That's, what the analytic nerds are going to tell you. They're going to jump up and down and tell you the success percentage, when you go to the ability to make a comeback and take a lead. I understand all that. I understand that numbers don't lie. I get all that. But to me, you take the points that are guaranteed. I think that at that point, when you break it down in odds, you're probably having a better shot at getting that 1 point. To me, you get what you can now, get some momentum going, get the points out of the way, and you're going to have to score again regardless. So I feel like you kind of, it's just a personal thing. I think that you have to, if I'm down, 15 points, my first touchdown, I'm kicking that extra point, and I'm bringing it to within 8. Because if you miss that 2-point conversion, you're not, down by 8 now. Now you're down by 10. It's technically still a 2-score lead, but whereas if you just kick that extra point, you go down by 7 or 8. I'm sorry, then you still have to get that 2-point conversion, but at least it's only a 1 possession game at that point. So I'm more of the mentality of just get the points you can get now, and try to make a play at the end.
Yeah. I wasn't quite as critical about the 2-point going or not going, but they had about a 4th and 3 with about 5 minutes left in the game. They only had 1 timeout. They were on maybe the 42-yard line. I didn't quite understand the decision to punt the ball because, as it turned out, they never got the ball back. Because of that decision, I mean, it let Andy Reid go for it on that fourth down because they had no timeouts left. They would have had to driven the length of the field to get a touchdown with no timeouts left, and it allowed them to go for it, the Chiefs to go for it on 4th and 1. But why do you think the Browns didn't go for it on that 4th and 3 right before they punted?
I don't know. To me, that was probably the worst coaching decision of that
Also,
game.
in the offseason, we're running a show about calling timeouts for delay of games in the 4th quarter. How about save those timeouts, eat the 5 yards, please?
Yeah, at some point, you do have to eat it 5 yards just to save a timeout. Those timeouts become really precious, especially when you're talking about the postseason. But punting the ball, I think, was a huge mistake. I think when you're down and you get that late into the game, I think it becomes more of a war of attrition where, who's going to break first.
Well, the other
And
thing I thought was you need one stop anyway. So if you don't get it and you hand them the ball in the 43, you have to get that one stop no matter what. So
I understand the mentality of trying to flip the field. I get all that, but this is the Chiefs, man, and I know that they didn't have their quarterback and everything, but it's still the Chiefs and it's still an Andy Reid offense, and we've seen them be productive, regardless of who's at the helm. Obviously, you feel a lot more comfortable with Mahomes not being there as a defense, but ultimately, it's still the Chiefs, and your defense hadn't really shown a lot throughout the game. So I don't understand why you were banking on that so much. I think that you probably would have been better off trying to go for it, and you did a little bit of a disservice to your offense by not going for it.
yeah, greatest disparity in first string quarterback, second string quarterback. Would it be the Kansas City Chiefs?
Listen, he made enough plays to keep his team in there, man. I know that he made a couple throws that were a little questionable, but how much of that had to do with the fact that he probably was not expecting to get into a playoff game, especially the way he did. So that gap is pretty big, but I still got to give
All I
credit.
know
He
is
tried.
I went from I could probably put this game on a side TV to watching quite intently the second Patrick Mahomes went out, and it was still like a 19-6 game or something.
Well, see, there you go. See, he's the type of quarterback that's going to glue you to your seat and make sure that volume is all the way up to 10. So he got the job done, man. You got to give him some props for that. He probably wasn't ready for it.
I was going to ask that 3rd down run where he got the yards back, and then oh God, that 4th down call. What did you make of the call? What did you make of the play?
The call in itself is a little scary, but it's Andy Reid. You kind of expect things like this to happen, but he handled it well.
Chad Henne sprint out to the right. Your go-to play call on that.
But I mean, even on that play where he ran to get those, like you said, to get those yards back, he didn't look bad, man. I think that. Listen, I trust Andy Reid. I know that he's had more than his fair share of shortcomings, but ever since everywhere he's been successful, and I don't think that you start doubting him now. I think that he's gotten to where he's at for a reason. So questionable calls, yes, but do you want to question Andy Reid? No. You just take it, and they got the win, so that's all that matters.
No, actually, I thought it was an amazing call because I can tell you if I was on the defensive side of the ball, that wasn't the play I was going to be prepared for.
Oh no, big cojones.
All right, we'll move on to the final game of the day, and this one was pretty much just decided by turnovers. Tom Brady, 18 for 33, 199, 2 touchdowns. Fournette, 17 for 63. Ronald Jones, 13 for 62. Cameron Brate, 4 for 50. Drew Brees, 19 to 34, 134, a touchdown, 3 interceptions. Like I had mentioned earlier, Jameis Winston, 1 for 1, 56 yards and a touchdown. Kamara, 18 for 85. Traquan Smith, 3 for 85, 2 touchdowns. Emmanuel Sanders, 6 for 48. I really don't know how to break this game down. It was pretty much just the the Saints turned the ball over in very bad positions. That's how Tampa Bay scored. They did not drive down the field, I don't think, one time for a touchdown. They scored on short fields on all three of the turnover or four of the turnovers. So it basically was a game decided by turnovers and really bad turnovers by the Saints. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to watch this game to the very end because obviously, I've got certain commitments with work and whatnot. But what I did get to watch was a little underwhelming. I thought that I really expected the Saints to come out and kind of fire on all gears. They looked to be a step slow. Um, the what I did watch of the game, it almost felt as if there was no trust in the quarterback's arm strength, whether it was Breeze or anyone else. It seemed like the only really deep throw that they had that game was with Winston on that play. I don't know if a lot of it had to do with the fact that the quarterbacks weren't, 100%, or I don't know. I really don't know how to
They
break this
didn't
one
look
down.
like Aaron Rodgers, I'll tell you that.
Oh, definitely not. And we kind of expected. If I had to pick, I would have. Well, we
And
did
this
pick
was a
last week.
controlled temperature environment. I think that might have been what was more disturbing. They were both inside a dome, and both of them just looked mediocre. They look like Jared Goff, essentially.
Yeah, the scariest part. I mean, not to really rain on the parade because they won the game, but the scariest part to me is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know that offensively the Saints are stacked. Michael Thomas and Kamara, and I know they have some good, really good weapons. But when you look at just the roster itself and the names on there, this Tampa Bay offense has so many weapons, and for them to perform the way they did, I thought that is a little underwhelming. Especially like you said, playing in a dome situation type of setting.
Yeah, the guys who were making plays were Cameron Brate and Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson. I mean, Evans was pretty much locked down. Godwin had a couple plays. Gronk wasn't even close to doing anything. It was the running backs played pretty solid, but the Saints were willing to concede the runs. So I don't even know if that really is. I put that as like, oh yeah, they dominated.
Yeah, for me, watching what I did watch of the game, and then trying to sneak a play here and there on my phone while at work, I felt like the Saints lost this game. Tampa Bay didn't really win it. That's just the feeling that I took away from it. I think that Drew Brees probably was a little too much in his head. As far as like this deciding what's going to happen during the offseason. I don't think that he was mentally ready for the playoffs. And a lot of it had to do maybe with the fact that he was kind of in and out throughout the season. The fact that his weapons were in and out throughout the season. I don't know how much that played into it, but
I think not having Murray and Hill also hurt a little bit. I mean, I know nobody makes a huge deal about Hill, but that's probably 6 to 8 plays a game. You have a sort of wild card thing put into your offense that you can use. And Murray, who has been a really solid backup back, could have grinded in some yards there. They wouldn't have had to use Kamara so much in between the tackles, and could have used him more as a receiver.
Yeah, and not just that, he also seems to be the more physical runner when it comes to the running game. I know the Kamara is physical, but he's more of a shifty type back, kind of a scat back, whereas in the other running back seems to be more of a downhill type of runner. As far as comparing the two of them, not that necessarily that's the case, but I don't know. To me, like I said, I felt like the Saints really lost this game as opposed to Tampa Bay winning it. Now, I don't know how much confidence that takes away from Tampa Bay going forward into this next round, going up against.
I do think this Tampa Bay defense has stepped up and played pretty good ball though lately.
You kind of expect it though when you look at that roster and the names that they have on there.
They are loaded on the defensive side of the ball as well as offense.
Yeah, and I've said it pretty much all season
loaded
long.
With younger, I should say too, than the opposite side, which is loaded with older.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what's going to happen with Brees going forward. I don't know when the final decision is going to come down. I'm assuming it's going to happen, during the actual off season once everything dies down a little bit. But given all the circumstances and all the setbacks the Saints had, I think that overall they had a really good season, all things considered. You know, it wasn't an ideal situation for them, almost like the Rams, where, you know, maybe not your marquee players, but definitely some role players that weren't in the game really affected kind of the way you played. And it, even like you said, even though Hill's not really a kind of guy that we really think about when it comes to the Saints offense, you know, even 5, 6 plays, whatever he's in there for, what those 6 snaps he might be in there for, it gives Drew Brees a chance to kind of stand on the sideline and watch that defense and watch the type of movement they're doing and, you know, the way they're reading certain things. I think it helps out a little bit. So not having him, I think, hurt him a little bit and hurt his confidence. But, you know, Tampa Bay's moving on, and I'm not trying to take anything away from them. You know, it's an accomplishment. They're in the NFC Championship game now. So, again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but, you know, to me, like I said, it felt like the Saints lost this game.
No, we have eyes. We watched that game being played, and we watched the Rams and Packers game being played. And I think if you gave me Rams, I think I'd take them over both the Saints and the Bucks. But I think the Packers right now are probably 2 classes ahead from what I saw than any of those 3 teams.
I'll just say this: if somehow Tampa Bay gets into the Super Bowl, and not that they're not a good team, because they're fully stacked and they've got every position you could think of, they've got somebody that can make plays. But if Tampa Bay makes the Super Bowl, I'd be really shocked.
Yeah, so would I. All right. So you want to get into our best and worst of the week. What do you got for best of the week this week?
You know, obviously we're going a little more simplistic since we've only got a few teams left in the postseason. But for best of the week on offense, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers offense. You know, even though they went up against a hobbled Rams defense, I think that they put together the type of game plan and protection on that offensive line to give Aaron Rodgers enough time to really kind of dissect that defense, and even that secondary, which has made a lot of plays. They were pretty quiet this time around, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that Aaron Rodgers was getting enough protection to be able to, you know, kind of wait for those receivers to break out and let the defense make a mistake here and there that he was taking advantage of. So the Packers offense are my offense of the week.
Yeah, I got the Green Bay Packers running attack. Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams really set the tone for that game, and really just were running hard and aggressive up the middle and on the outside, which really opened up that Packers play action passing game. So the Green Bay Packers running attack, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, really thought they were great this week. All right. So what do you got for best? I think we just did best. What do you got for worst of this week?
For worst of this week on offense, I had to go with the Browns, simply because I felt like they had the type of recipe to at least kind of, you know, stay in it, especially when Mahomes went out. But they really, you know, kind of went away from their own identity, which is run the ball. And I think that really hurt them. And they've done it a few times, especially late in the regular season. They had a few games where they really went away from the run and put the ball in Baker's hands. And it was obviously a mistake because they lost a few of those games. And they went away from it again, which is not the time you want to switch up and try to find your character. It's in the postseason. So the Browns offense got worst of the week for me.
Yeah. Drew Brees got worst of the week for me. Those picks were just pretty much unexcusable. You don't throw those picks, I think the Saints win that game. You don't have any turnovers. It's probably a 22-6, 22-9 game, and you're cruising now. You're going to Green Bay. You might not be able to win that one, but I just thought those turnovers were really bad. Same with Jared Cook. His fumble was sloppy and lazy ball handling, but Brees should have made either eat the ball, take the sack, but don't force those kind of throws, especially in a game where you know the other side of the ball can't drive the length of the field and score points on you, especially coming out of that halftime where they drove down, scored a touchdown, got up on the lead. As long as they don't make any turnovers, they run away and win that game. And I just thought they sort of capitulated to them and gave Tampa Bay the turnovers they needed to score points.
Yeah, it's actually a good call.
All right. So that's our show. Be sure to follow us on greenlightnetwork.org for all our podcasts. We'll be on later in the week to do our picks for the NFL conference finals to see who is going to the Super Bowl. Where can we find you, Achilles?
As usual, you can find me on Twitter at TD Achilles. You can also find our content at the Greenlight Network YouTube page. You can also find all of our picks and a bunch of different goodies at our website, which is greenlightnetwork.org.
And you can also find our page on Facebook, Greenlight Network. You can find me, GLN Champ 5, both on Twitter and Instagram. That's our show, and we're out.